1.7 million deaths every single year in India. That's not from war, not from famine, not even from a pandemic. It's from something we barely talk about when we discuss economic growth. Last week at the World Economic Forum at Davos, one of the world's most respected economists, Geeta Gopinath, stood on stage and flagged 4 massive structural problems that are quietly choking India's growth potential. So today, we're breaking down what she said at Davos and why ignoring her could cost India its shot at becoming truly developed. Hello folks, I'm Shashank. You're tuned into FinShots TV. We're part of 01 Media by Zerodha. And if you've ever wanted expert insurance advice, minus all the jargon, spamming and pressure to buy, then Ditto is worth a try. Made by the same people who made FinShots, Ditto's IDI certified advisors help you choose the right health and term insurance plan without any spam. So, book your free consultation using the link in the description. Alright, back to the video. The World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos brought together nearly 3,000 leaders from over 130 countries last week. India was very much in the spotlight. Unilever's exploring a GCC in Hyderabad. Dune Vista Capital secured $1 billion for a global fund with $100 million for India. The UAE and Telangana agreed to collaborate on Bharat Future City. The narrative was all optimism. India is on track to become the world's 3rd largest economy. We jumped from $1 trillion to $4 trillion in GDP faster than anyone expected. FDI is constantly flowing in and global investors are quite bullish. And then Geeta Gopinath, economics professor at Harvard and former deputy managing director of the IMF, walked into the panel discussion and said, "Not so fast." Gopinath flagged 4 critical structural problems, so let's go one by one. Gopinath said one of the areas she wants to point out, which we usually don't talk about when talking about business development, is pollution. If you look at the impact of pollution on Indian economy, it is far more consequential than any impact of any tariffs that have been put on India so far. A World Bank study from 2022 showed that nearly 1.7 million people died in India in 2019 due to pollution. That's 18% of all deaths in the country. Air pollution in Delhi, water pollution in Ganga and Yamuna are economic catastrophes apart from being constant environmental issues. Monetarily, we lose around 5 to 9% of GDP, roughly around 30 lakh crore rupees every year to reduce workforce participation, increase healthcare costs and lost productivity. How's that? Let's take an instance of a rooftop solar company in Delhi that loses around 13% of power output on high smog days because sunlight literally can't penetrate the air. Now, multiply that across every sector, every city, every investment decision. Companies are at the risk of losing close to $95 billion annually. We talk endlessly about Make in India, about attracting global manufacturers under the China Plus One strategy. But if a German executive has to choose between setting up a factory in Vietnam or Gurgaon, and Gurgaon's AQI is consistently above 300, he's picking Vietnam for sure. Not just because of taxes or labor costs, but because his family can't breathe there for 3 years. Now, problem number 2, land acquisition. In most of India, clean land titles just don't exist. You genuinely can't prove you own the land you're standing on because records are outdated, disputed, or flat out missing. Shifting land from agricultural to commercial use requires navigating a bureaucratic nightmare that can drag on for years. And without land, you can't build factories. Without factories, you can't create manufacturing jobs. Without manufacturing jobs, you can't absorb the 40% of the workforce that is still stuck in low productivity agriculture. Gopinath highlighted Andhra Pradesh as an example of a state finding creative solutions wherein, for example, if a tech company wants to build a manufacturing unit, the state facilitates land pooling, farmers voluntarily contribute land in exchange for developed lots elsewhere, and the process moves in months. Sadly, it's not the same everywhere. Alright, problem number 3. The labor trap that's stunting growth. Here's a stat that should genuinely shock you. If you look at the contribution of labor to growth in India since 1980s, only about 30% of India's growth has come from labor. Yes, just 30%. India has 1.4 billion people. We talk endlessly about our demographic dividend, and yet our production structure is capital intensive. Machines and automation are driving growth, not people. Why is that? Because hiring labor in India is quite complicated, expensive, and risky even, thanks to rigid labor laws. Now, labor codes were passed by Parliament a few years ago. The threshold for higher regulation has been raised from 100 workers to 300. That's progress. Perfect. But Gopinath pointed out the obvious flaw. If you want to be a part of a big global supply chain, you're going to have to be way more than just 300 in terms of size of the labor force that you have. Let me explain. Okay, let's say a textile manufacturer in Surat wants to expand from 250 workers to 600 to fulfill a big order from a European retailer. Once they cross 300 workers, they need government permission for any layoffs or retrenchments, even if demand drops seasonally. They also have to draft formal standing orders defining every service condition, disciplinary rule, and employment norm, which requires government certification. Now, folks, these aren't bad regulations because, yes, workers deserve clear terms. The problem is the threshold. At 300 workers, you're not a mega factory, nowhere close. You're at best a mid-sized unit trying to compete with probably a Vietnamese factory that employs 5,000 workers without these compliance gates. So, what does a Surat manufacturer do now? He doesn't expand to 600, he opens a second unit with 250 workers instead. Now he's running two facilities, duplicating overheads, all to stay under the regulatory threshold. On the flip side, Apple's Foxconn factories in China employ hundreds of thousands of workers. India's trying to compete with a 300 worker compliance cap, and then there's a skill mismatch. Gopinath mentions it's not just about the fact that firms aren't creating jobs, there is a mismatch between what jobs can be created and the skill of the labor force in India. Even if we loosen labor laws, even if we build factories, we still can't fill the jobs because the workforce isn't trained for them. India's workforce is 26% exposed to AI compared to global average of 40%. But the sectors that we dominate, like business processes, outsourcing, coding, call centers, those are about to be heavily impacted by AI. So the uncomfortable question is, if AI takes the jobs that we are good at, and we haven't skilled our workforce for the jobs that we are not good at yet, where does employment come from? Finally, Gopinath turned to the judiciary, that is the fourth problem. And she was quite blunt here. Judicial reform is an evident bottleneck for growth in India, and it's been there for a long time. People have seen it as a long-standing challenge, but haven't seen many changes on that front. If you can't trust the courts to resolve disputes quickly and fairly, you don't make big investments. And if India needs $1.4 to $1.7 trillion in annual investment to hit its growth targets, trust is non-negotiable. Now, after laying out these four structured killers, Gopinath made another point that cuts to the heart of India's growth story. She said, without a doubt, India will become the third largest economy of the world. It's a matter of a few years unless something catastrophic happens. Now, based on current projections, India gets there by 2028. That's the good news. We're going to be big, massive even. The challenge for India isn't about becoming the third largest economy in the world. We're already en route. It's about raising per capita incomes to higher levels, because the third largest economy means nothing if per capita income stays around $2,800 while China sits at $13,000. It means nothing if 40% of the workforce is still trapped in agriculture earning poverty wages. It means nothing if the top 10% capture 57% of income while the bottom 50% scrape by. So, what's the path forward like? 1. Pollution needs to be made a top mission for India alongside deregulation, imposed penalties for violators, coordinated state action is required, investment in clean energy and transport is also call of the hour. 2. On land, what Andhra is doing needs to become the national template, clean land titles and facilitate faster acquisition processes. 3. On labor, states need to fully implement the labor codes that have already been passed. But beyond that, we need massive skilling interventions. Finally, on the judiciary front, we need reforms that have been stuck for decades to finally move. More judges, fast-track commercial courts, digital case management, whatever it takes to cut the backlog and restore investor confidence. Now, folks, none of this is easy, but the alternative is stagnation. The alternative is becoming the third largest economy in the world while still being poor on a per capita basis. So, here's where we land. Geeta Gopinath stood at Davos and delivered a reality check that everyone needs to hear. India is going to be big, that's guaranteed. But whether India becomes developed, whether we actually achieve widespread prosperity, depends on whether we fix pollution, land, labor, and judiciary, among the other problems that we have. The choice is ours, but the clock is ticking.